All right, here's Chuck Todd doing an interview with Mike Pence. And I got to tell you, Mike Pence is a very limited, shall we call him, politician. He did not answer a single question that Chuck posed to him, and the majority of the time, he immediately pivoted towards an attack on Hillary Clinton. Chuck, to his credit, pressed him 3 times, which you'll see shortly, but he couldn't get this guy to answer. You can't get any of the Trump people to answer simple yes or no questions, or questions about their own quote-unquote policies. Anyway, here's the interview with Mike Pence.
Asked Pence to explain Trump's position on deporting undocumented workers in this country, and then I had to ask again and again and again. Here it is.
It begins with building a wall, border security. It begins with enforcing the laws of this country, removing criminal aliens and removing people who've overstayed their visa, ending catch and release, strengthening our border patrol, strengthening immigration and customs enforcement, doing all of the kinds of things we've talked about, the E-Verify system for employers in this country, all the things that we know will bring all the incentives that are built into our economy, all of the ways that illegal immigration has been made possible in this country, all of that will come to an end. And I think that's exactly what the American people want to hear today. And with regard to anyone that remains after all of that is done, I think what you heard Donald Trump say is that we'll give consideration working with the Congress in a new and reformed immigration system to consider it at that time. But what the American people want to see today is to establish the borders of this country, enforce the laws of this country, and Donald Trump has created a roadmap to do that, Chuck.
Why can't...
All right, so that was attempt number 1, where he was asking what is Trump's plan to do with the 4 million or so people that are not criminals and not overstaying their visas. And Mike Pence just went into that long, drawn-out thing. Now here's Todd asking him again.
Can't you definitively say what's going to happen to these folks? Because he used to definitively say it. He said there would be, everybody has to leave, even if quickly. Everybody has to leave, and now there's some muddiness to this. I don't know how, it is just unclear to me. Can you clear this up?
Well, that may be the way you see it. I'm looking at those some 10,000 people in Arizona last week. They see it.
That's the way pretty much everybody sees it, unless you're a dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporter. He hasn't said what he's going to do with those 4 million people.
As I travel across this country campaigning with Donald Trump and for Donald Trump, I think people hear him loud and clear, and he's been completely consistent on this point.
No, he put illegal deportation
at the center of the national debate.
But he has not been consistent on this issue of what to do with the 11 to 15 million.
Well, but there are people in different circumstances in that category. There are people.
No, but see, that's the whole point. Trump didn't give a shit about people's circumstances. If you were undocumented, you had to go. And now all of a sudden, there's this flip-flop looking at circumstances. Nah, that's bullshit. That's a change.
People who are criminal aliens in this country. And I think everyone in this country understands that people who are here,
violent crimes.
Well, people who are here, who their first act in this country was a violation of the law, but have gone on to criminal activity in America. We want them out. We want them out quickly. Donald Trump has made it very clear that a priority of our administration will be removing criminal aliens. We'll also be,
just in case you're unaware of it, that's what President Obama's priority is, getting rid of criminal, undocumented people, okay? Obama's already doing that. So that's not going to be a change. Matter of fact, in one of Trump's speeches, he acknowledged that President Obama was doing an excellent job of getting rid of those guys.
Finding people who've overstayed their visa. An enormous number of people come to this country legally and then simply overstay their visas because we make no effort to hold them accountable to that or uphold the law. The simple truth is that what the American people long to see is leadership at the national level that doesn't myopically focus on the group that you're focused on, and I know the media loves to focus on.
It's not the
but
media.
it's
There's
focused
a lot of,
on, but Chuck is focused on the American people
There was a whole bunch of
themselves.
Latino leaders that there's quite a few of them have backed away from supporting your ticket because they didn't like what they heard on Wednesday because they were told one thing and they felt misled. One of them even said they felt misled. And one of the major issues has to do with what about this issue of deportations and what are you going to do? And it's not just media.
I was campaigning in Idaho, and a Mexican American who came to this country legally with his family came up to me wearing a Trump Pence shirt, shook my hand, and said, "Tell Donald Trump we support him 100%."
That must have been Marco Gutierrez, okay, because he's the only one that we've seen lately that would say something like that. And of course, there are other Hispanic supporters, but Gutierrez is a Mexican, and he would be one of the few guys I think that would be wearing a support Trump shirt, making comments like that. But I guess Mike Pence didn't catch his TV time.
People who have come to this country legally, who stood in line, who played by the rules in the Latino and the Hispanic community, just like every other American, long to have a president that says we are a nation of laws. And that we're going to uphold and enforce those laws. But what I thought was most important about Donald Trump's speech on Wednesday night in Arizona was different, frankly, Chuck, with all due respect to the media's focus on the 11 million or whatever that number is. He was focused on the more than 300 million people who are citizens of this country and are here legally in this country, and driving policies in immigration that will work for them, work for the future of our nation. But make no mistake about it, I hope your viewers have a chance to read or to see that speech in Arizona. He also talked about establishing a commission to reform our broken immigration laws whole cloth.
All right. For those of you who didn't see it, I put a video up just of the speech itself with no commentary. And Donald Trump screamed damn near the entire speech. But the video's up there if you just want to check it out.
Really to reform and change the way that people have the ability to come into this country and do it all in a way that's in the interest of the American people and in the interest of the long-term future of our country.
Is it fair to say that you're not going to answer this question about the 11 to 15 million? I say just you, but the campaign, you're going to leave this as an open question throughout the rest of this campaign?
I think...
Yes, it is fair to say that he is not going to answer that question, and neither is anybody else in the Trump campaign.
I think Donald Trump's been completely consistent, and I think he did answer the question.
Is it an open question? But he hasn't when it comes to, because on one hand he said deportation force, everybody has to leave. He said it, everybody has to leave. We got to have borders. Now he's saying he's open to doing something different with whoever remains, which would be about half.
Well, I think we really don't know what that number is or who that is until.
But we know that it's a number. So let's say it's on the low end, it's 1 million that are left, which that's ridiculous. But let's say it's 1 million. What are you going to do with the 1 million? Exasperating.
We do all of the things in the 10-point plan that Donald
Incentivize
Trump
them to come out of the shadows if you don't tell them what the penalty will be.
Well, I think, look, Donald Trump's made it very, very clear that in his 10-point plan, we're going to build a wall. We're going to enforce the laws of this country. We're going to end catch and release. We're going to do all of the things that politicians in both political parties have been talking about for more than a generation. He's also said there's going to be no amnesty and no path to legalization. If people want to get legalized or want to get right under the color of the law, they need to leave the country. But
so
he also
becomes
said
legal in this country without leaving the country.
Chuck, he also said
this is where we get confused.
He also said it's not going to be under the existing caps in the existing program, but it's rather going to be under a new and reformed immigration program.
Okay, so what he just said is that everybody out. Everybody's got to leave. Okay? Now that's different than what everybody else has been saying for the past week or so. So if it's everybody out, at least we have some kind of a definition.
you heard Donald Trump call for was border security, building a wall, which actually Hillary Clinton actually said that she was for a physical barrier, I'm told, just a few short years ago.
What do you do with so-called dreamers? Folks, kids that were brought here, when they came over here, their parents brought them illegally, they were kids, they're here now, they've gone to public school, what do you do with them?
I think all of these...
He said he's going to rescind the executive order that the president signed. So then what do you do with them?
Yeah, well, of course...
Is it in the shadows?
Well, of course, he's going to rescind, as he said, all of the unconstitutional executive orders we've had in President Obama. And now we have a pledge in Hillary Clinton, the promise of successive administrations that essentially legislate from the Oval Office. The Supreme Court turned that back with this administration. And Donald Trump, of course, will rescind that, and he won't, as Hillary Clinton promises, to do executive amnesty.
Okay, so, and that's a hell of a question. What do you do with the dreamers? Because they basically have been living here, their whole lives, some of them, short of being birthed, coming at, after being born, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever age, gone through our entire public school system. A bunch of them even... Sorry about that, folks. I had to take a call.
How are you going to force an ally to pay for the wall? I mean, I understand the remittance idea that you redo the Patriot Act. Is that, that feels like a shakedown.
Well, look, we have an enormous economic relationship with Mexico, and this week you saw Donald Trump travel to Mexico City and meet with President Peña Nieto and start a constructive dialogue, first on issues that they agree on. But I'm very confident when Donald Trump becomes negotiator-in-chief, we're going to sit down with our ally in Mexico, who shares with us a commitment to
incentive to pay for this wall. I mean, other than we're going to withhold money, that's the
United States of America is the most powerful economy on the face of the earth. Mm-hmm. Access to our economy is enormously valuable to Mexico and every...
So are you talking about imposing a tariff and starting a trade war? Is that what you're saying? Because that's exactly what it sounds like.
Other country in the world. As we go into whether it's reforming NAFTA, as both of these leaders talked about in their meeting this last week, or a broad range of areas of our relationship. Look, there's the one thing Donald Trump knows is how to do a deal.
Let me ask you about being in Utah, by the way. First of all, you had a campaign in Utah. Yeah. And there are a lot of Mormons in particular don't like the Muslim ban, don't like even the revised version of it, which is not supposedly targeting religions, but targeting regions. And they come home from missions and talk about trying to help these Syrian refugees. I'm sure you heard some complaints personally about this. What did you tell concerned Utah residents about the Muslim ban?
I would.
All right, he's going to spin his answer and state how welcoming the people of Utah are to the Trump campaign. And that's a bunch of bullshit. They even got a guy from Utah that's running, and he's garnering a lot of that Republican vote right now.
I was frankly overwhelmed by the support that I encountered in Utah and later in the day in Idaho. I have to tell you, people are listening to Donald Trump's agenda to make America great again, and they're responding. And I'll tell you, particularly in Utah, there's great concern about the Supreme Court of the United States.
Let's go back to this Muslim ban. When he first came out of it, you basically said it's unconstitutional. You have defended the new version of this. Why do you think the new version of his plan, which would target countries or regions rather than religion, why do you think that's constitutional?
If you hear an answer on this one, please put it in the comments, because I never heard one from this guy.
Well, first off, the foreign policy of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton has resulted in the wider Middle East literally spinning out of control. I mean, we've seen Syria imploding into civil war, Libya imploding into civil war. We have entire countries in that region of the world and territories that have been compromised by terrorism. And I think what Donald Trump has said is that we have to immediately suspend immigration from any countries that have been compromised by terrorism. And I think
make a case that over 100 countries have been compromised. I mean, like, how do you identify what is a, give me the definition of a country compromised by terrorism? Is that France?
Well, let's start with.
Okay, before we get there, notice he didn't answer the question about the constitutionality of what Trump wants to do, i.e. Extreme vetting of particular countries, and he didn't name a single country, which he's going to name now, and he's going to name the obvious characters, countries like Syria. But France has been compromised by terrorism, Germany's been compromised by terrorism, Belgium's been compromised by terrorism. What would you do as far as those countries are concerned?
Well, let's start with
the United States.
Chuck, let's start with Syria. Hillary Clinton wants to increase Syrian refugees to this country by 550%. I don't think any
United Nations.
Now, see, they always use that giant number of 550%. The increase is from 10,000 to 65,000, but 65,000 doesn't sound as bad as 550%. In everybody's mind, that's a huge number. But 65 doesn't appear to be so bad for most people.
Is asking the United States to increase its Syrian. By the way, for what it's worth, it goes from, right now we've accepted 10,000, and they want us to accept 65,000.
Sure. Well, Hillary Clinton wants to increase Syrian refugees to this country by 550%.
10 to 65. That's what the UN requested.
Donald Trump and I believe that we should suspend the Syrian refugee program
Completely.
And create, working with Arab countries to create safe zones for people to be able to escape those war-torn areas, but to continue to allow people into this country when our own Homeland Security, our own FBI says we can't know for certain who these people are, is putting the safety and security of the American people second to the agenda of the UN or the liberals in this country, and Donald Trump is just simply not going to do that.
Quick question about the leadership of the campaign. There's been some troubling allegations, both with against Steve Bannon, some things he may have said about Jewish people, some things he may have happened between him and his wife. There's been troubling allegations having to do with Roger Ailes, both of whom are apparently advisors to this campaign. Are you comfortable with that, considering some of the allegations you've read against both of these men? Are you comfortable with their involvement in this campaign?
Well,
Of course he is, because Donald Trump has picked these guys. And we all know that Donald Trump is an excellent judge of character. So when he brings a guy in that ran Breitbart, that was both anti-Semitic and a racist organization against blacks and Hispanics, of course that's not a problem. When he brings Roger Ailes in, who is a misogynist, he has manipulated female employees and sexually abused them. And we're not going to call it rape, we'll call it sexual abuse. And he's into S&M. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. Perfect image, Donald Trump standing between Steve Bannon and Roger Ailes. I love it.
I promise you, the person leading Donald Trump's campaign is Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he and I talk every day, sometimes several times a day. He is a hands-on leader and a hands-on CEO.
Appropriate for Roger Ailes to be involved?
I trust Donald Trump's judgment to assemble around this team a group that's going to help us move forward and be successful and win. And come on, I mean, Steve Bannon has denied all of those allegations. And
some of them are in court records. I mean, look, and I know divorces are divorces. I'm not going to. But it's troubling allegations. People are going to look at that and say, all right, Steve Bannon, then you see all these allegations against Roger Ailes. It just feels as if does he ignore troubling allegations against people that work for him?
I trust Donald Trump to assemble a team around him in this campaign, as he has and will continue to. You'll continue to see people added to this campaign. What's really remarkable for me, having joined this campaign just 6 weeks ago, is the fact that this campaign has always been propelled by a movement of the American people. I mean, we're in Hillary Clinton. There's 1,000 employees and experts and pollsters, and frankly, there were people in the Republican primary who had significant apparatus as well.
The other big news story this